the edge of a silver-tipped forest, where fireflies whispered secrets and old oaks wore moss like royal robes, there stood a castle unlike any other. It was taller than the tallest pine, and older than the oldest owl's tail. Its towers curled like question marks toward the sky, and its windows shimmered with the light of dreams. But lately, the castle had grown tired. Wind danced across its rooftops, brushing past ivy-covered stones and rustling through forgotten banners. The castle did not stir. Leaves swirled through its empty courtyard, chasing each other like giggling children. Still, the castle did not answer. Even the sunbeams, which used to skip cheerfully through its stained glass windows, now tiptoed quietly, as if not to wake it, for the castle was trying, with all its might, to fall asleep. Inside, grand staircases creaked softly, wishing for silence. Chandeliers hung motionless in the hush, their crystals blinking like sleepy eyes. A velvet curtain, once proud and sweeping, now drooped wearily over a window that no longer looked out, only inward. The castle, in its heart of stone and magic, yearned for rest. Once, long ago, music had echoed through its halls, laughter bouncing off its walls like bright balloons. Children had run beneath its arches, voices full of wonder, and stories had whispered through its rooms each night. But those days had faded, and now the castle felt something missing, though it could not remember what. So it sighed, a slow, stony sigh, and tried again to close its heavy wooden doors, hoping the forest would understand. All it wanted now was to sleep. But the world outside was not ready to let it. Not yet. In the quiet mornings, mist clung to the castle's walls like soft wool, wrapping every turret and tower in pale gray. Birds perched along the ramparts, but even their songs grew hushed, as if respecting the castle's strange drowsiness. The forest had noticed too. The foxes no longer played near its gates. The deer, who once grazed beside its stone bridge, had moved deeper into the trees. Something had changed, and not even the wind could quite explain it. Yet one soul remained near Small, unnoticed, and utterly curious. At the foot of the hill where the castle rested, nestled between two crooked birch trees, lived a girl named Lina. Her home was a small thatched cottage with a garden full of dandelions and clover, and a chimney that coughed gentle puffs of smoke like a sleepy dragon. Lina was no older than 9, with braids that looked like rope and eyes that flickered like candlelight. Every day, she would walk to the edge of her garden and look up at the castle. No one else spoke of the castle anymore. Grown-ups said it was empty, abandoned, haunted even. But Lina didn't believe that. She saw how the clouds curved gently around its tallest tower, as if protecting it. She noticed how the ivy clung tighter each day, not to choke it, but to keep it warm. She felt, in the pit of her belly and the flutter of her chest, that the castle was not gone. It was waiting. One morning, the mist was so thick it felt like walking through milk. Lina tiptoed past the trees, across the old stone path, and up to the castle's gate. The doors loomed high, carved with spirals and stars, but they did not open. They groaned softly, as if stirring from a dream, then returned to stillness. Lina placed her hand upon the wood. It was warm, not like sun-warmed stone, but like the back of a sleeping hand. She whispered, though no words left her lips. The castle heard her, not through ears, for it had none, but through the soft pulse of magic that still lived in its bones. That night, as moonlight spilled like silver syrup over the hills, Lina had a dream. In it, she stood in a great hall of glass and velvet, where candle flames danced upside down in the mirrors. A voice, not a voice, more like a feeling tugged gently at her thoughts. It spoke of stories forgotten and lullabies left unsung, of old joy buried beneath stone and vines. It asked her a question, but when she awoke, the question had faded, like fog under the sun. Still, something inside her had changed. Each day after, Lina brought something with her to the castle, a ribbon from her doll tied to the gate. A bell, small and tinkling, hung from a low branch. A jar of fireflies left on the doorstep, glowing like bottled stars. And each night, her dreams grew brighter. She saw children in golden costumes twirling through moonlit ballrooms, their feet never touching the floor. She saw kitchens bursting with music and flour, gardens filled with singing carrots and polite tomatoes. She saw a dragon in the attic who knitted socks for mice. She saw the castle as it once was. But each morning, when she returned, the castle remained still. One afternoon, storm clouds rolled across the sky like angry sheep. Lina sat beside the great oak at the base of the hill, watching the castle through the rain. Thunder grumbled overhead, and for the first time, she felt doubt bloom in her chest. Perhaps the grown-ups were right. Perhaps it really was empty. Or worse, perhaps it wanted to be alone. Yet, just as she stood to leave, a soft sound reached her ears. Not thunder, not wind, a hum, low and slow, like a forgotten lullaby. She turned. The ivy on the walls was rustling, not from rain, but from something beneath. The stones shivered, the windows blinked. The castle was trying. It was not sleeping. It was struggling to remember how. Lina raced up the hill, soaked and shivering, and placed both hands against the doors once more. The wood was trembling, not with fear, but with effort. The castle didn't want to shut the world out. It wanted to dream, but it didn't know how, not anymore. Too many years without music, too many days without stories. It had forgotten the way into dreams. So, Lina made a decision. The next day, she brought a book. Its cover was faded and corners torn, but inside were stories her grandmother used to read, tales of rivers that talked and bees who sang lullabies. She sat by the gate, back straight, voice steady, and began to read. Her words were soft at first, slipping through the cracks like sunlight, but as she continued, they grew bolder, brighter. The grass leaned in, the trees hushed their rustling, even the rain stopped to listen. Each day, she read a new tale. Some were silly, some were sad. Some made her laugh until tears fell. The castle listened. It didn't speak, not with words, but with creaks and groans that felt like sighs. Windows blinked open, doors moaned wider. A single candle flickered in a tower window one night only for a moment, but Lina saw it. She was not alone. Soon, others noticed. First a boy with patched trousers and a curious heart. Then, a baker's daughter, arms dusted in flour. Then, a pair of twins who argued about dragons. Each one brought something: a song, a painting, a puppet show performed for empty windows. The castle drank it all in like water to dry roots. Its halls echoed again, not with voices, but with memories stirring. But not all was easy. One morning, Lina found the gate ajar. Inside, the halls were darker than usual, colder. Her breath puffed like smoke. A chill threaded through the air, not from weather, but from sadness. A memory too heavy, a shadow too sharp. She felt it before she saw it, a cracked mirror in the ballroom, covered in dust. Beneath it, an old toy lay forgotten, a wooden knight, broken at the knee. The castle was remembering sorrow too. That night, her dreams were stormy. The glass halls trembled. The dragon in the attic had lost his yarn. The mice were hiding. The joy had faded like candlelight. But Lina understood now. Dreams were not only made of laughter, they held sadness too. And that was okay. The next day, she returned with glue and thread and painted buttons. She fixed the knight and placed it back beneath the mirror. Then, she sang not a loud song, but a soft one, full of longing and hope. The castle listened. Bit by bit, it began to change. The bells in the towers chimed faintly at dusk. Curtains swayed with unseen footsteps. The garden burst into sudden bloom roses, opening where only thorns had been. A door creaked open to reveal a forgotten nursery, still filled with spinning tops and picture books. And from deep within its heart, the castle sighed a long, peaceful sigh, like the first breath before a dream. Still, something held it back. Something still missing. And the castle did not yet sleep. Night fell with an uneasy stillness. The stars blinked, hesitant and dim, as if unsure whether they should watch or turn away. The castle stood taller than ever, its towers piercing the sky like questions without answers. But within, The hush was deeper than before. The air trembled with a silent ache. Lina woke in the middle of the night, heart pounding. The dream had come again, but different this time. She stood in the great glass hall, but everything was quiet. No music, no dancing lights, no dragon in the attic or laughing portraits. Just silence. Cold, heavy, endless silence. The castle was fading. Its heartbeat, once so faint but steady, had become still. She threw on her cloak and ran, bare feet slapping against the damp grass. Moonlight streaked through the trees, guiding her up the hill. The castle loomed ahead, and as she reached the gate, she saw it had opened wide, not slowly, not creaking, but as if blown apart from within. Ivy had peeled away. Windows were blank, hollow. The warmth that once pulsed through the stone was gone. The castle was no longer trying to sleep. It was giving up. Inside, everything shimmered with a strange, colorless light. The chandeliers hung crooked. Paintings had lost their faces. The toy knight she had fixed lay in two pieces once more, and at the very center of the ballroom, where once laughter had soared, a crack split the floor thin but deep, like a wound. Dust swirled around her feet as Lina stepped forward. Something had been broken, not just the stone or the silence, but the hope inside the castle itself. She turned slowly, searching the shadows. Her voice, though she spoke no words aloud, echoed in the hollowness. Her thoughts shouted inside her heart. Why are you giving up now? Why now, when we've come so far? Then the wind began. It came not from outside, but from within the castle, cold and sharp, curling through the halls like a whisper turned wild. It blew through the torn curtains, through the nursery, past the forgotten toy chests and cracked mirrors, and with it came shadows long and thin, like memories that had soured. They did not chase her. They did not speak, but they surrounded her, pressing against the edges of her courage. The castle, in its pain, had awakened something old and afraid. Lina's hands trembled. For a moment she wanted to run, to flee back to the forest and let the castle drift into its forgetting. Maybe it didn't want saving. Maybe it had slept for too long. But then she remembered. The fireflies in jars. The songs sung on rainy days. The bell hung from a tree branch. The candle in the window. The dreams full of dragons who knitted and gardens that sang. The castle had felt those things. It had held them. It had wanted them. And now it was afraid of losing them again. With a breath that shook her chest, Lina stepped into the ballroom center. The crack at her feet pulsed. The shadows flinched, twisting like smoke. Her eyes closed, and she held in her thoughts something stronger than fear, a memory. She remembered the first story she ever read to the gate. A tale about a lion who couldn't roar until he found someone who listened. She opened her mouth and began to speak it again, not with a book, not with her voice, but with her heart. She poured the story into the silence. The rhythm, the wonder, the courage. She remembered every detail, not with her head, but with the part of her that had always known magic. The wind screamed louder, furious and wild. But she didn't stop. She told the next story, and the next. Stories she had read, stories she had imagined, tales of lost things found and broken things mended, of a baker's son who sang to bread, of a horse with wings too small who learned to fly anyway. Her memories braided together like threads, weaving a tapestry of sound and feeling. And something began to shift. The chandeliers trembled, not with fear, but with awakening. The portraits blinked. The dust on the floor stirred gently, like breathing. The broken night glowed faintly at the edges. The shadows twisted, rearing up, but they could not touch her, not while she remembered, not while she believed. With each word, the crack in the floor shrank, as if healed by imagination itself. Lina felt the castle begin to stir, not just in walls and windows, but in spirit. The dreams that had been locked deep within it were stirring too. Then, from the tower above, a sound, a single chime, a bell, long forgotten, dust-covered. It rang once, clear and true. The shadows screamed. The wind scattered. The silence broke. A great warmth surged through the walls, blooming like golden fire. The windows lit up, not with light, but with scenes, memories returning. A birthday feast, a child learning to dance. A knight laughing as he chased butterflies. The gardens outside exploded with light, flowers blooming all at once as if woken from a century's sleep. The castle remembered. It remembered who it had been. It remembered the joy, the sadness, the wonder, the dreams. It remembered it was not meant to sleep forever. It was meant to dream. But not alone. Lina collapsed to her knees, tears hot on her cheeks. Not from fear, but from the strange, enormous feeling inside her chest. Like being hugged by something older than the stars. The castle had not just heard her. It had believed her. And as the golden warmth settled like snow over every stone and stair, the castle began, for the first time in 100 years, to truly rest, not in sorrow, not in loneliness, but in peace. Lina felt it. A slow, steady heartbeat in the floor. A sigh through the beams. Not sleep. Not yet, but rest. And somewhere high above, a window opened, letting in the dawn. Morning unfurled slowly across the sky, brushing the clouds with soft gold and pink. Light pooled through the newly opened window at the top of the tower and slid down the castle's stones like honey, warm and slow. Where once ivy had clung too tightly, now it swayed gently, like green ribbons waving in the breeze. The wind no longer moaned through broken rafters. It hummed a gentle tune, like someone whispering a lullaby just before sleep. The castle had changed not into something new, but into something whole. Inside, the shadows were gone. Not hidden, not chased away, but quiet now, resting. The halls felt lighter. The walls no longer sighed from sorrow, but from relief. The chandelier straightened, each crystal catching sunlight and flinging it across the floor in soft rainbows. The crack in the ballroom floor had closed, leaving only a faint line, like a healed scar. Lina stood alone in the center, quiet and still. Her cloak was damp, her eyes ached, but her heart felt bigger, like it had grown wings. Around her, the castle seemed to breathe slow, steady, content. She turned to leave, stepping gently through corridors that no longer creaked with sadness. In the nursery, the wooden knight had been placed upright again, now joined by a tiny crown made of ribbon. In the kitchen, the shelves were full not of food, but of quiet readiness. And in the garden, buds peeked shyly from the dirt, as if asking if it was safe to bloom. It was. Outside, children were gathering. First, the boy with patched trousers. He carried a string of tin bells he'd made himself. Then, the baker's daughter, hands powdered in flour and cinnamon. Then the twins, arguing cheerfully about whether dragons preferred strawberries or cherries. Word had spread not from mouths, but from hearts. Something had awakened. More came. A girl with a paint-splattered apron brought a canvas and began to paint the castle exactly as it looked in her dreams. A shy boy with a flute played a tune the wind seemed to follow. A group of elders brought blankets, stories, and warm tea, their eyes misty as they looked upon a place they thought long lost. No one spoke about what had happened inside the castle. They didn't need to. Somehow, they felt it. The change, the peace, the slow, steady hum of something ancient and tired, finding rest not by being forgotten, but by being remembered. And Lina simply sat on the old stone steps, hands wrapped around her knees, watching it all. She didn't lead. She didn't command. She just listened, like the lion in her story, the one who found his roar when someone truly heard. The sun rose higher. By midday, laughter floated through the courtyard. Stories were read beneath the trees. A new swing was tied to an old branch. Someone found the old bell tower and rang it once, twice clear and bold, and the castle responded. The windows opened wider, the doors stretched as if yawning. From deep within, a soft music began not from instruments, but from walls, from floors, from the very heart of the stone. A kind of hum that felt like joy remembering itself. Not everyone noticed it, but the ones who listened closely The ones with wonder in their hearts, they heard it, and they smiled. Later, Lina wandered alone through a hallway she hadn't seen before. It was narrow and crooked, like it had been curled away for safekeeping. The walls were lined with paintings, dusty but bright underneath. Children with wild hair, grandmothers in flowered dresses, a dragon wearing reading glasses, all of them painted with love. At the end of the hall, there was a door, small, round, and glowing faintly. Lina touched it. It swung open silently. Inside was a room made entirely of cushions and light. Fireflies floated lazily in jars. A globe spun without being touched. Bookshelves lined the curved walls, filled not with finished stories, but with blank pages. And in the center, a round table, waiting. Lina understood. This was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of the next. She picked up a quill that shimmered like moonlight and placed it gently beside a book. Someone else would come. Someone else would write. Someone else would dream. The castle would sleep when it needed to, but not from sadness, not from forgetting. From peace, from fullness. Outside, dusk returned, slow and soft. Children were heading home, their pockets filled with petals and stories. Grown-ups carried warmth in their eyes, though they didn't quite know why. The hill was no longer lonely. The forest, once silent, now rustled with songs and secrets once more. Lina stood at the gate, looking back one last time. The castle's tallest tower blinked with golden light. It did not call her to stay, but it did not let her go alone. She walked down the hill with the hum still in her ears, the sound of dreams, not sleeping, but waiting. And behind her, the castle, once lonely, once tired, settled gently into rest. Not forgotten, not sleeping, just dreaming, and ready to wake again.